Here in Gauteng, our dams are full, but far too frequently our taps run dry. Part of the problem is the ongoing power cuts that mean pump stations cannot fill up reservoirs quickly enough. There's also high demand due to more people moving into the province. And it seems we're very thirsty here in Gauteng. Our consumption's really high. Yesterday, the Water and Sanitation Minister, Senzo Mchunu, told Gauteng mayors that Rand Water, the bulk water supplier, cannot meet the province's demands. Let's discuss this now with the CEO of Rand Water, Sipho Mosai. Mr. Mosai, thank you so much for your time. I'm trying to get a bit of context before we deep dive into the real problems. In recent years, we've seen a lot more people moving into Gauteng, rapid urbanization. Can you give us a sense of how much demand for water has increased in Gauteng in recent years?
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for having us. I think on average, the demand for water, factoring in, as you say, issues of migration and population growth, year on year, we're seeing volume increase of about 2%, which effectively is not a big challenge to meet. Just to give you context, at this point in time, on average, we supply 4,600 and odd million liters of water a day. As at last year, the municipalities were looking for about 4,500 against 5,006 that we were able to supply. But in recent times, that number has actually come down drastically. And as we speak now, the municipalities are demanding close to about 3,000 megaliters. So if you compare on average demand, 4,600 that we supply against a lower number of 30,000, we can sufficiently meet that demand, factoring in the growth that you're referring to. But the biggest challenge in recent time has been obviously load shedding, heat waves. If we have huge demand for water that is more than our peak supply, which is about 5,000 million liters of water a day, and it lasts for a long time, it becomes difficult to fill the reservoirs. If we don't fill the reservoirs timelessly and to the prompt, then it creates a problem of low head. And if we have low head, some areas in Gauteng, as you may have indicated, do struggle to get water timelessly. So the system becomes unstable as a result of intermittent power supply during high load shedding and heat waves. But under average circumstances, we are able to meet that demand. We factor our growth demands and include issues of population growth and migration.
All right, so you're kind of coping with that. What about the leaks? Because we're hearing that about 40% of water is lost through leaks. Does that you've even factored that in, have you?
Yes, we do factor that in. But it is a matter of serious. If you were to ask me what is the biggest challenge in the water sector, it's what we call non-revenue water. And that 40% plus that you're talking about is non-revenue water. About 30% or so, it's physical losses. So at the sector, particularly at the distribution level, mainly at municipalities level, is grappling with that, aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced. And really, there's a bit of a backlog in that regard. And then the minister is putting plans in place for us in the entire water sector to deal with that. So it is a matter of concern and remains our Achilles heels at this point in time.
I hear you. So really what you're saying to me is that there are a lot of little challenges and that have become bigger challenges over the years, but the load shedding combined with the heat wave is absolutely the worst thing that can happen to you. If load shedding were to end tomorrow, or you got the exemptions around your water infrastructure that is being requested, would that basically solve your problems of supply and demand?
Yeah, no, it will certainly. I think if the numbers are anything to go by, if the demand is below, an average demand is below what we are producing on a daily basis, it shouldn't be a problem. And we also have, in fact, an additional factor in it that is able to help us to cope with the peak demands at about 5,000. And beyond that, it becomes difficult to meet that demand. So one of the things that we can do and we should be doing to deal with that situation is to deal with the problem that we're having, that we are just indicating now of non-revenue water. And part of the discussions that we're having with our municipalities and the minister is to speed up that process of reducing physical losses in the main, in the value chain. I think our municipalities have indicated the budget that they have in place, but seriously, they need to get more allocation in that regard to deal with this problem.
Why are some...
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking this evening about people who just don't have access to water yet, because that's an entirely different focus. But people who have access to water and it starts getting taken away, it really speaks to a deterioration of the plan of water. Why do some areas get a harder hit than others? I'll give you one example. Melville here in Johannesburg. Yep. Low or no water very frequently. And I think that's because the Hurst Hill Reservoir is often really low. What's to blame, or who's to blame? Is it Rand Water who's got to carry the can, quite literally? Is it Joburg Water? What's the problem there?
Yeah, I think you're quite right. There are areas that in recent times are grappling with water supply, and that part is mainly the western part of Johannesburg that is supplied through our eNCA system. What happens during this time when we are not able to fill the reservoirs to the prompt? Historically, Joburg Water was relying on the head, in other words, the volumes of water into those reservoirs. So if we are not filling those reservoirs to the prompt, to use layman's language, in other words, full, then it doesn't have enough head, and water doesn't reach the high-lying areas. So all the areas that are struggling from time to time, as you indicate those, is because they are in the high-lying area. Joburg Water, specifically in that area, is going to be, in the next 12 months, resolving that matter, because they're installing additional storage capacity in that area. They're adding additional pumping capacity so that the water that we get to them, if they don't have head from our side, they're able to boost that water into those high-lying areas with the pumps that are going to be installing and storing additional water, so that when we have load shedding, particularly stage 8 or so, they still have water. So the challenge is well known. All of us enjoy water precisely because
it's good that you, as you say, clearly you know the problem even in that specific area. I have to ask you one last question. If the status quo continues with high levels of load shedding between stages 3 and 6, possibly beyond, should we prepare for more dry taps, or perhaps for trying to fork out for boreholes as well as solar panels? I mean, what is the scenario for the residents of Gauteng if the status quo stays as it is with high levels of load shedding?
Yeah, from our side, and we are thankful to the Minister for the engagement that is arranging with the Minister of Electricity. But from our side, it's, as the President indicated, we look forward to being exempted across the entire value chain with water infrastructure from load shedding. That's the first thing. So in the shortest possible time, we hope we will be exempted. But secondly, from our side, we're also trying to get off the grid. We are having projects that are coming into effect where we're going to be installing hydropower generators, converting the kinetic energy in our value chain into electrical energy, i.e. instead of using pressure reducing valves, we're going to be connecting turbines in that to generate our own electricity. We are going to be buying additional diesel generators at our main booster stations. We have now some, but those are in the tertiary stations. So we are also going to be going out in the marketplace looking for IPPs to plug and play into our system. So our view is, as the Minister has indicated of electricity, that it's not only about the supply side, it's about the demand side. So as a high energy intensive energy user, in the grid, we are also doing something from the demand side to alleviate the challenge of load shedding. So in the short and medium term, we're not just sitting back and saying there's a problem of load shedding. We're anticipating and planning for the West and getting ourselves off the grid and assisting from the demand side so that we can continuously supply water. So I think what we are seeing from our vantage points, it should be a short-term problem that we will, in the long term, irrespective of stage 10 or 8, whatever the stage is, be able to continuously supply water. But as you rightfully say, the demand for water, if you look at where we are in Gauteng relative to other cities here in South Africa, is still high. If you take non-revenue water, and the water that we in our households is upwards of 200 liters per capita per day. City of Cape Town sitting at close to 200 now, liters
Wow.
per person per day. So
Okay.
in Gauteng, we need to do that.
I've just
for
heard a
ourselves.
challenge. We've got to do better than Cape Town. Sipho Mosai, thank you so much. CEO of Rand Water. We are consuming too much water. Yes, load shedding is a massive problem, but it's all in our hands to a certain extent.